August 8, 2005, Fortaleza, Brazil, one of the country's most secure bank vaults, was opened for a routine inspection. What the staff found inside would stun investigators across the nation. Nearly $30 million in cash had disappeared overnight from the Banco Central. Nothing to suggest how anyone had reached the vault. Within days, federal police uncovered something buried beneath the city streets. Carefully constructed tunnel stretching toward the bank's foundation. But to understand how one of the largest bank heists in Brazilian history unfolded, we have to go back several months to a quiet house just blocks away from the Banco Central, where a group of men were about to begin digging.
Todo era cuestión de tiempo. Conocíamos los horarios, conocíamos los puntos débiles, y cuando atacamos, atacamos con fuerza, pero lo mantuvimos en silencio. Lo último que queríamos era llamar la atención.
For months, they operated under the radar, blending in with the ordinary people of Fortaleza. The men, pretending to be workers, had rented a house just a few streets away from the Banco Central. It seemed innocent enough. A house, some hired hand, the perfect cover. They tunneled for weeks, digging beneath the surface, cutting through matters of earth and concrete with no one the wiser from the house. A small opening led them straight to the vault, and when they reached the treasure trove of cash, they worked in silence, carefully not to leave a trace. One of the thieves, who later turned informant, recalls the moment before the heist. It was all about timing. By the time the sun rose on the day after the heist, the city of Fortaleza was in shock. News reports screamed of a perfect crime. The authorities' world was crumbling, but it was already too late. They were ghosts, says João Silva, a forensic accountant who would later piece together the financial fallout. They didn't leave behind any fingerprint nor obvious trail. They took nothing that couldn't be replaced, but the damage they caused was monumental. Over $30 million, that was just the start. What they took was confidence and security outside. Life in Fortaleza continued. The streets bustled with their normal rhythm, but beneath the surface, the criminal world had shifted. The authorities were struggling to comprehend how something so elaborate, so precise, could have occurred right under their noses. Inside the vault, every stock of money had been carefully packaged, transported without a single hitch. The bags were heavy, filled with stock of bills, $30 million in total, and as the thieves loaded up the last of the cash, their plan unfolded seamlessly without anyone even noticing. The investigation kicked into high gear with hundreds of officers and detectives trying to piece together the puzzle. Hours went by, then days, with no sign of where the money had gone. There were whispers of insider involvement, rumors that some of the bank's employees had been complicit.
They had people on the inside, a criminal psychologist who analyzed the case. It wasn't just about the execution, it was about the network. These men had connections, people who knew the inner workings of the Banco Central, the routines, the patterns, and that knowledge made the difference between success and failure.
In the days that followed, investigators combed through every inch of the Banco Central CCTV footage. Was reviewed, but there were no clues. No one had seen anything unusual. The vault had been opened like a professional. No struggle, just a smooth operation that left the authorities wondering how could it have happened. Detectives then turned to the rented house where the tunnel had begun. What they found was chilling. Inside the house, blueprints of the Banco Central, equipment for tunneling, notes of the bank's security systems, everything meticulously planned.
We thought we were looking for something obvious, one of the late detectives. But when we saw the blueprints, everything clicked. They had mapped out the vault. They knew exactly how the security worked. They knew when the guards would leave for their bricks. They knew the gaps for weeks. The investigation turned up little.
The thieves had vanished. The money, though scattered across the city, had been moved in a way that made it nearly impossible to trace. Authorities followed every lead, raid homes, safe houses, but the money was always one step ahead.
They didn't just take the money and run. They hid it, spread it out. They knew we'd be chasing shadows. By the time we thought we had them cornered, they were already gone. And even then, the money was gone too. The operation was a chess game, and authorities were still trying to catch up.
It was a cat and mouse game, but the criminals held all the cards. We got one of them to talk, says Fernandez. That was the breakthrough, but by the time we caught up with them, the money was already split. It was like chasing ghosts. As the investigation continued, it became clear that this was no random act of theft. This was a carefully orchestrated operation involving multiple people, multiple steps, and for all their planning, the thieves had overlooked one crucial mistake that would eventually bring them down. In the end, the thieves were caught, but $7.6 million remained uncounted for years. The perfect crime had been exposed, but the impact of the Banco Central heist would last far longer than the criminals themselves.